so much for joining us here in the beautiful North End in one of the signature spots in all of Boston, the Paul Revere Mall, the Prado for the neighborhood. Folks, this is an extraordinary day. This neighborhood has been waiting for this investment for a long time. And perhaps as important, all the thousands and millions of tourists that come through the Freedom Trail have been waiting for this investment. It's an extraordinary space. It's beautifully well designed, and this project is going to be a restoration of one of the signature open spaces in the city of Boston. We're so grateful that you could join us here today. My name is Chris Cook. I'm the Commissioner of Boston Parks and Recreation, and I just want to say a big, quick thank you to the men and women of the Boston Parks and Recreation Department, especially the North End crew who work so hard day in and day out to keep these spaces beautiful. If you could please give them a round of applause, I'd appreciate that. And I want to thank Ryan Woods and his whole team to put this event together. We have a lot of speakers, so we'll try to get through that as quickly as possible. But again, I want to thank you all for joining us. The person who I'm going to introduce now inherited a fairly robust capital campaign, and then he nearly doubled it. He's expanded the Parks and Recreation Department every single year he's been in office. And in addition to that, he's really taken a special interest in the actual capital campaign. And it was the mayor himself who actually put the Paul Revere Mall and the Prado restoration in it. And the reason we're here today is it was also the mayor himself who kept saying, why isn't that done yet? And so, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you a huge champion for the Paul Revere Mall and the North End in general. Ladies and gentlemen, the Mayor of Boston, Martin J. Walsh.
Great. Thank you very much, Chris. And I want to thank Suzanne Taylor, who's here with us today, Reverend Ayers, who's with us today from the Old North Church. I want to thank Chris and his team at Parks and Recreation. I want to thank your state representative, Aaron Mickowitz, who's with us today. And I want to thank all the community that's here. This neighborhood is like no place on earth. It echoes with history and culture, tradition, and it's stronger than ever today. And especially it's true here at the Prado. For centuries, people from all over the world have come to learn about the history of the North End. Every day, it brings friends and families together to keep that tradition alive. And I know that Charlie's here today, and Charlie and his boys all hang out here. So thank you for being with us today, Charlie. And it's important that you probably know about this place more than anybody. Maybe Paul Revere might know a little more about you, but other than that, you know more. So it is exciting. And you know, anytime you'll read the history of the North End, I read a book about the Fitzgeralds at one point, and Rose Kennedy, as we all know the story, when she was born and lived in the North End, her family. This neighborhood has been where so many people, so many different nationalities got their start when they came to this country. And the latest is the Italians, and the Italians stayed here and took ownership of it, and you can see it on the restaurants in the neighborhood and on the corners, and it is a great place. And we're investing in this park because it needs it, it deserves it, and really we're not investing because of the tourists, we're investing because of the community, because of the neighbors that live down here. Obviously the tourists are going to come and see it, but it's important. This $3 million renovation will preserve that makes this place great. The fountains, the masonry, the trees, it'll make it safer and more comfortable. And it's very important that we make the Prado more accessible for people of all ages and all abilities. Everyone should have full access to this space in this cultural resource in our community. What happened about 3 years ago, I was here one Sunday morning. I was down the corner hanging. Come on, Santa. I was hanging with a few guys in the corner. We were talking about our problems in life. And I looked around and I saw that this was in dire need of a major renovation. I smelled the smell in the bricks and the trees, and there's really no weeds, but the tree pits were bare. The bricks were uneven, and I called Chris Cook, and I said, Chris, I want to make a major investment in the North End because it deserves it, and this area deserves it. And Chris said, whatever you have to do, whatever we want to do, we'll do. And we started this process about 3 years ago. I know we've gone through the community process. We're working with the neighbors about what we can do here. And I just want to thank everyone, and thank you for your patience, and thank you for waiting for the city over the last 20 years to do this. This should have been done a long time ago, and it wasn't, but it's being done now, and we want to make sure that you understand the importance of this neighborhood. I also know that the Elliott School is down the street and right here too, and the kids from the Elliott walk through this area. So it's important for us to make sure that we continue to make our public spaces inviting to all of our community. We're also joined by Senator Joe Boncory. I'd like to thank Senator Boncory for being with us today and for his support as well here, and this truly is a collaboration. We're also working in other areas of the North End, just so, and all of these are teams that we work together on. Reconstructing North Square, $2.5 million. It's a state, a city, and a federal partnership, working to make sure that we continue to move there. Improvements to Langone and Popolo Playground. We're going to be making a $6.2 million investment there. I believe the community meetings have started to talk about those parks and how not only we do those parks over, but how we use those parks as an opportunity for resiliency from sea level rise by raising the park up and allowing the opportunity to be able to protect that side of the North End. $260,000 for Christopher Columbus Park. Making investments. We don't have to really make a lot of investments there because Friends of Christopher Columbus do an incredible job of keeping that park beautiful, one of the most beautiful parks in the country that we have right down the end of the street here in the North End. We also, a $3 million design for the North End Community Center. One of Sal Martinez's last pushes was that the Nazaro Center, we take a real serious look at the Nazaro Center to see how we look and see what we do there. And Aaron and Joe and Lydia and everyone said we should do that. And we're going to be looking at the Nazaro Center to see, is there an opportunity for us to build a brand new state-of-the-art center, and does it belong where it is, or do we belong moving it to a better location? So we're going to be looking at having those conversations. Those are the types of investments that we think about in the city. They're not short-term, they're long-term, and how the impacts of what we're doing will last for generations to come. So again, I want to thank everyone here. We know how much people from all over this world love this neighborhood. We know from people all over the city love this neighborhood, and especially we know how much the residents love this neighborhood. I'm grateful to all the people who put their heart and soul into this incredible place, and I'd like to just thank you all for that for being here. Before I turn the microphone back to Chris, we have one special recognition that myself and Aaron and Joe would like to make today, and that's a certificate of recognition to a woman who has given 40 years of her life to the Boston Public Schools in dedication to the education of the kids of the city of Boston, and that's Lydia Torres. I'd like to ask Lydia to come up here, and myself and Joe and Aaron. And on behalf of all of us, we want to wish you congratulations, and we want to offer you just a little token. We were going to give you a check, but that's up to the state guys to get the check, and they didn't bring it today. They're still debating. But we want to thank you for everything. Thank you.
It's got to be one of the other.
Go for it. You have time.
A little more over here. Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you. Perfect. There you go. Thank you. Is that good?
Thank you so much, Mayor. And you can give Lydia a nice round of applause again, too. That's fantastic. Just in case it was lost in you, I just want to repeat that number of the renovation that this is going to receive. This is going to receive a $2.9 million renovation. That's an extraordinary investment for the North End. And I also want to acknowledge the partnership we have with the George Robert White Fund, Emma Handy and Drew Smith. They weren't able to join us here today, but they are also contributing $1 million to this project through the White Fund. We're very, very grateful for their support. A few more quick thank yous. I want to thank our project manager, Allison Perlman. She's all over the city working on tons of projects. She's worked with the community. She's done a fantastic job. If you give Allison Perlman a round of applause, please. I want to thank Kyle Zick, who we were joking earlier is the second coming of Arthur Shurtleff, the chief landscape architect who designed this park. Kyle, thank you for everything you and your firm have done through the community process. we're very, very fortunate. We lucked out with a great contractor. I think you're going to have a great experience with them here in the community. Fleming, they're going to do an excellent job. We're very, very grateful that they're willing to work, especially during feast season. That's not an easy thing, but they're going to do it, and they're going to make sure that it works with the community. But again, we talked earlier about how this is a neighborhood park, but it's also a visitor park. It's such an important node along the Freedom Trail, and we just have to acknowledge the extraordinary partnership that the City of Boston has with the Freedom Trail. Here representing the Freedom Trail Foundation is their Executive Director, Suzanne Taylor.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Chief Cook. First of all, I'd like to echo the Mayor's thanks. I want to thank the City of Boston, the Mayor himself, Chief Cook, Allison Perlman, as Chris mentioned, is the project manager, and Kyle Zick, Landscape Architects, for working with the North End community and Freedom Trail partners on plans for this most worthwhile and exciting project. As many of you know, Paul Revere Mall, affectionately known as the Prado, is an important neighborhood park for both residents and visitors. It provides us with a shady, quiet, contemplative respite from our busy streets, which is a nice welcome to all of us who live here. It is a unique view to the iconic Old North Church, and it provides historical information about our founding fathers and their neighborhood in the 18th century. It's a gateway connector to Old North and to and from Paul Revere House to the church. It's a dramatic frame that is most frequently the first view that residents and visitors have of Old North. Having said that, it is probably one of the most photographed places along the Freedom Trail, with the Paul Revere statue in the foreground and, again, the iconic Old North Church steeple in the foreground. It brings history to life. As one walks through the mall, it invokes a feeling of delivering the message of revolution, riding with Paul Revere, and shining out from Old North Church. City of Boston projects like this, and like the Mayor mentioned, the North Square reconstruction underway, along with other projects along the Freedom Trail, will help us as a community to prepare for celebrations, the 250th anniversaries of historic events in 2025 and 2026, as well as our great city's 400th in 2030. With over 4 million people visiting the Freedom Trail annually and residents using this great park from one end of the year to the other, the city's efforts to improve this gem is truly invaluable to everyone. Thank you, Mayor. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce one of our Freedom Trail partners, Reverend Stephen Ayers, Vicar of the Old North Church, also Executive Director of the Old North Foundation, to give us a special blessing of the shovels. Thank you for coming, everyone.
Thank you, Suzanne, and thank you, Mayor Walsh, for committing funds to restore the Paul Revere Mall. Well over 500,000 visitors per year come to see the Old North Church and learn about our role in America's history and beginning the American Revolution. And we are delighted that their pathway to the church is going to receive a much-needed makeover. We are so happy that today we have lit our 2 lanterns so that we can declare to the community, the nation, the contractors are coming, the contractors are coming. Paul Revere and the Old North Church stand for fundamental civic values of personal sacrifice and communal faith that make our nation great. Like this park, those values have been neglected and worn with the passage of time. I pray that the restoration of this park helps us restore our commitment to common civic values as we prepare to celebrate the 250th birthday of our nation in 2025 and 2026. I want to give my profound thanks to the strong leadership of Mayor Walsh and of all the representatives who are here today, to Superintendent Michael Creasy of the National Park Service, to Representative Aaron Mikowitz and Senator Boncourt, for the significant funds that are beginning to help improve the Freedom Trail sites, and all the icons of our history that are in need of improvement like this park are as we prepare for our 250th. Particularly want to thank Mayor Walsh, who's become a real leader in this area. And if you look around the city, the number of improvements that are being made that are going to help this city prepare to welcome millions and millions of visitors as we celebrate our nation's birthday. At the Old North Church and Historic Site, all three levels of government, along with private donors, are collaborating to help restore the church crypt, which we hope to begin next year, and to build a new garden that interprets Longfellow's poem in its 19th century abolitionist context. Most visitors don't realize that One If I Land, Two If I Sea was written to encourage young men to join the Union Army. It was published on the eve of the Civil War. So thank you all who have supported our efforts along the trail and at Old North to teach the civic values that make America great. With that, let us pray. Listen, my children, and you shall hear of the renovated Mall of Paul Revere. One if by land and two if by sea, and we under the statue will be rededicating ourselves to liberty. Bless the workers who restore this mall so that we will ensure that freedom is for all and that our civic values may never fall. Amen. And now let's all gather a shovel and start this project.
1, 2, 3. Folks, thank you so much for joining us here today. We appreciate your partnership.